everybody, what's happening? I'm Tommy, and you are on the Lifeboat. Kevin Hawthorne, Lakeland, Florida. Good to see you, my brother. This one's going to be another fun one, people. I know a lot of you really dig the Diddy content, and I don't do nearly as much of it as I used to because there's so little out there that's actually news. Hey, Kathy, Ann from Mass, how are you? But this is actually news. There's a German word, Schadenfreude. I think most people are familiar with it. Renee B., good to see you. On time, even. I think most people know the word Schadenfreude. It kind of means taking pleasure in watching someone else's downfall. Audra in Denver, I'm glad you're here. We actually have an American version of this. Hey, Kawhi Green, glad you're here. Epicaricacy. It's not a word you hear a lot. Epicaricacy. Doesn't necessarily translate the exact same way. It means rejoicing in evil, which is kind of nasty, but it is used often in the English language for people that don't want to say Schadenfreude. But I'm a guy that spent a little bit of time in prison. I was a convicted bank robber, and I may have had a case for some gun running. This was a long time ago. I turned my life around. I don't do any of that stuff anymore. But I don't normally take pleasure in watching people go to prison or stay in prison. Mike Bragg, good to see you. But there are exceptions to that rule. When people are just absolute lowlifes, and if Sean Diddy Combs ain't an absolute lowlife, Johnny Scoville, he'll do until the absolute lowlife shows up. This guy's about as bad as it gets. Hey, Tommy Bird, good to see you. Kristen Melinda, glad you're here. So I am taking joy in the fact that, number one, this guy is staying in prison. And I'm going to go over a lot of the reasons why he's definitely staying in prison. And the other thing is, I think all of us kind of dig this. Johnny Scoville is here, acts as my producer from time to time. And I'm able to yell at him when he's in the room and have a conversation that you guys get to be privy to because he's a pretty funny guy. But I do take joy in this one. It's just kind of... I don't know. It's justice in a way, isn't it? This guy victimized so many people, allegedly. Of course, he continues to deny this like he denied beating Cassie Ventura. So it does have to be said out loud that these are allegations and that this man continues to deny them. The Mann Act conviction that he is in prison for, that's already been established, and we don't have to say allegedly about that. He had people cross state lines for the purpose of sex, right? That is a crime. If people are bummed out about that, then they should get rid of the law. But starting in about 2010, the amount of time that they started giving out for the Mann Act went through the roof. And they put mandatory minimums if the person you're transporting across state lines happens to be underage. In fact, if you do a little research, that was one of the things that really got Ghislaine Maxwell. It's also one of the things that really got R. Kelly because those people got huge sentences. The person that kidnapped Elizabeth Smart got a life sentence for very similar crimes. The kidnapping was less of a sentence than was the Mann Act part of it because of the mandatory minimums and such. I also, like almost everybody on planet Earth, like to say I told you so. It's not something that you ought to take pleasure from, but damn it, I do. And when TMZ broke the article that said Donald Trump is going to let Diddy out of prison, he's either going to commute the sentence or he's going to pardon him, and he'll be out by either this Friday or next Friday. I did a show and just went, this is absolute bupkis. There is no chance whatsoever that this is happening. And at the time, I called it a trial balloon, right? And I believe that Mark Garagos, who has been working with Diddy forever and whose daughter helped, went, yeah, you know what? Maybe the guy got screwed, then the president might be a little bit more likely, and maybe there would be some pressure on the White House. There also might have been pressure from lobbyists. This may come as a shock to a lot of people, but there are lobbyists who only try to get people pardons. This may come as a shock as well, but they get paid a hell of a lot of money to try to get people out of prison, right? This is something you can make a lot of money doing. Now, whether or not Diddy hired them is up for debate. There are people that say that he did not. He refused to pay lobbyists on account of the fact that he and the Don knew each other. So I said at the time, there's no way. And here's why I said it. Two reasons. Number one, it's political suicide for your party. You let this predator back out on the street. God forbid he does anything wrong. Your party is screwed for maybe a couple of election cycles. It'll be a recurring commercial, right? The president let Sean Diddy Combs out. This guy's a predator, blah, blah, blah. The second reason was they were friends. And then once the Don got into politics, Diddy said some really ugly things. Hey, for always, forever, for life. Good to see you. I said at the time, does Donald Trump impress you, like him or hate him? I'm not getting into politics. But does he impress you as the kind of guy that doesn't hold a grudge, or maybe the kind of guy that holds a grudge? I said, because of the things that Sean Combs said about him, there's no way in hell that he's ever going to let him out of prison. Well, recently, the New York Times did an interview with Donald Trump, and one of the questions they asked him concerned pardons, and they brought up Sean Combs. And the president said, yeah, he wrote me a letter personally begging to get out, but there's no way that's going to happen. So this puts to death the Harvey Levin rumors and all of the stuff about sources close to the White House say he could be out within a couple of weeks. On top of that, I was right, because in that article, he said, you know what? I wouldn't do it because of the things that he said about me when I was running for president. Plain and simple. It wasn't the, hey, this guy's a predator. It's the, hey, this guy talked crap about me. He didn't talk about the merits of the case at all. He just said the things that he said about me, there's no way I'm going to let him out. That was, I'm paraphrasing, but I promise you that's the takeaway. He also then said, I can go get the letter. You want to see the letter? Right? Him begging me. Our president, like him or hate him, does like to take shots at people that weren't good to him, and he never misses an opportunity to do so. So he was ready to go.
He does keep score.
He does keep score, Johnny Scoville. He's one of those cats. When he gets out, if he does, he may have to flip burgers or wait tables to pay for his fines. Well, fortunately, he already paid the fines, fortunately for Sean Combs, and he did this that fast. No one does that. The reason he did that is he wants to be able to start moving through the process of trying to get out. And one of the things that you have to do if you want to get out of prison early is pay those fines. So the only hope this cat's got left is whether or not he's going to get an appeal that's put through. You're going to hear a lot of people say that the time that he was given is way too much for the sentence. But I've got news for you. That doesn't actually make any sense, because I spent a little time looking up recent cases of people that have been prosecuted under the Mann Act. By the way, white and black. Now, is this historically a law that was put in there to screw over black people? It certainly was.
Chuck Berry.
Chuck Berry law. They screwed over Chuck Berry. Actually, they were screwing over black people. Jack Johnson got screwed over. They were screwing people over in the early teens. And very often, Johnny Scoville, they didn't even have to necessarily cross state lines. If they could just find him with a white woman, they kind of prosecuted it. That's not a glorious part of our history. But they didn't get rid of the law because the law is just. Right? For real. Prostitution is illegal. If that's something that bums people out, maybe get rid of prostitution. But if you're flying prostitutes in from other states to bang people, that's against the law, right? Rewrite the law if that's a problem. But if it's not, if you're going to keep that law, then you have to prosecute people for it. And I take extreme umbrage with people that say, you know what, that law shouldn't be dealt. You don't put people in. Every law I broke, I went to prison for. When I went to court, I got sent up. Right. And I did my time. I didn't cry. I didn't go in there and piss and moan, which is what he's doing. And let me have a little fun with the whole epicaricacy, Johnny Scoville.
I think it should mean guilt-free Schadenfreude.
Guilt-free Schadenfreude. I like that. So here's a little Schadenfreude. Let me tell you what's been happening in that prison, because I've done a little time and I have done time with famous people. Diddy's been in there and he's been working this appeal thing. He's been telling everybody in there that he'll be out by the end of this year, that the president himself is going to pardon him on account of the fact that they're friends. And this is something he's working. Inside, that will buy you all kinds of cred. It really will. There are people in there going, damn, this dude knows the president, man. He's going to get pardoned. Everybody at Fort Dix, I promise you, knows about this article that was written in the New York Times, which didn't just say you're not getting out. It mocked him. It made him kind of sound like a punk. It kind of made him sound like a punk. And I'll be really honest. That word punk isn't a really good one in prison. It's not. But the term punked or being a punk in prison, if someone calls you that, you have to hit them. This may sound absolutely ridiculous, but it's the truth. The other word is bitch. If somebody calls you either of those two words, you have to get up and fight them. If you do not immediately get up and fight them, Katy Perry, then what's going to happen is the fellas are going to go up into your cell and take your stuff. You're going to be treated really poorly and they're going to run you off the yard. Someone, this isn't a really hard yard, but there's got to be people in there going, man, he got punked, right? This is going to make his time much more difficult. Oh no. But I'm sorry, I called this. Trump may do some and say some things we'd consider, I don't know, stupid, but he'd never be that stupid. I tend to agree because there's precedent in our country for this, right? Walter Mondale let a guy out of prison who was a rapist. And then the dude got out. What's that? Willie. Yeah. Was it Shoemaker? I never get it right. It's not Schumann or Shoemaker. Somebody help me. Willie something. Someone will come up with it. I don't think it's Shoemaker.
Was it Willie?
It was Willie. But he let this guy out, and then the guy went out and committed the exact same crime, and it's political suicide. If you let a criminal out, especially a violent one, and they continue to do what they did, that's political suicide. If you're the president, it's not just political suicide for you, especially if you're in your second term, although who knows, maybe he'll try for a third. But if you're in your second term, it's a little less pressure, right? However, if by some chance you're the president, what's going to happen is you're going to screw your entire party, and you're going to screw them for a really, really long time. They made a lot of commercials about Walter Mondale and that whole thing. It wasn't a good look. It was not a good look at all. Does punk mean gay too? I think you meant punk. Yeah. If we really look, we're all adults here, right? The B word in there usually means somebody that gives mouth hugs, and the punk thing is somebody that bends over and takes it up the tailpipe. That's kind of the expression. And somebody punking you usually means that they showed you absolutely no respect whatsoever. If a guard in prison goes out of their way to make you look like you're soft, or they say something that is just completely out of line, they talk about your wife, they talk about your girlfriend, they say something that is just considered by the fellas really uncool, then you got to hit that guard. Now, I know that doesn't sound like it makes a lot of sense, and it's stupid. The intelligent thing to do would be to walk away, but you're not allowed to do the intelligent thing in prison. It's kind of a rule, and I know this because I did punch a guard for wildly disrespecting me. And I went to the SHU for 15 months. The first half a year of that I spent on solitary confinement. Then I went from there to a place called the Special Management Unit in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, where I did a hellacious amount of time in what is basically the hole. It's a lockdown unit that is 23-1. That means, hello, good to see you. It means that you're going to spend 23 hours a day in your cell. You only get out 1 hour for recreation 5 days a week. We also got out for half an hour a day, 3 times a week to take a shower, which is just good living if you can get it right there, Johnny Scoville. Good living. I despise Trump, but Diddy did call him a terrible person and say that he needs to be gotten rid of. So he definitely is holding a grudge. He also said that this election isn't about politics. It's about good versus evil. And if you call the current president evil, you might not want to write him a letter and ask him for a pardon. I don't think it's going to work out much. Archie's mom, good to see you, man. Glad that you're here. Glad that you're catching a live stream. This is going to make the time that he does in prison considerably more difficult because he's been shooting his mouth off. And the fact that he's been shooting his mouth off has been leaked out, right? There's been a lot of stuff that has gotten to the street from people that have said, Diddy claims he's getting out of prison, that the president is going to commute his sentence or pardon him. And those are two different things. A pardon will take it right off your record. So if you got pardoned for a felony, you can now go own a gun. It's literally taking the eraser and just removing it. And they were quick to say he wasn't going to pardon him. He was just going to commute the sentence, which means if you got 2 years in on a 20-year sentence, a commutation just means you still have the conviction, but you're not going to have to serve the remainder of your sentence. It's not something that is highly likely. He also talked about in that interview about Maduro. He talked about Derek Chauvin. He talked about a lot of other people that he could potentially pardon. And again, I'm not trying to get political, but this is a guy that likes to flex. You know what I mean? He got to the office. He got there twice, and he thinks he got screwed over the first term. And let's be honest, he did. Right? They made up a lot of stuff in that first term that just was absolute bullshit. So he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder. And he does this whole, I have the power to do anything. I can bomb people. I can do this. I can do that. Lewisburg is in Pennsylvania. It is in the middle of absolute nowhere for always, forever, for life. And the special management unit is for the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. They like saying that out loud. There are about 3 million people that are in prison or incarcerated at any time in the U.S. Of that, about 1% of that, give or take, end up in the federal system, and 1% of them can't make it with the regular guys, and they get sent to the special management unit. I unfortunately ended up there, and it's there's no heat in the winter. Not making this up. There's no heat in the winter, and there's no air conditioning in the summer, and it is just a really tough place to do time. We didn't have fans. We didn't have anything because you're on a restricted unit. We were allowed a radio. We were allowed the shoes that we purchased from the last prison, and you could buy a sweatshirt and a pair of sweatpants there, which is kind of an important thing as you're right, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Thank you, Tommy Bird. Yeah, it was a horrific amount of time there. I did 18 months at Lewisburg, and then I got sent to the Supermax facility in Colorado, in Florence, Colorado. Not the administrative detention center, which is ADX. I got sent across the street, literally, like I could look out my cell and see ADX, although you don't see ADX in the traditional sense of the word. They kind of build it up like a volcano so that nobody can see right into it. There's like wood. I mean, there's like dirt mounds. So it's like sits inside almost a crater that was built by them. Not a nice place to do time. No heat, I promise you. And here's the funny thing about the no heat. There's also very few windows in most of the cells. This thing was built in 1933. Most of the windows have been broken out. So the wind blows in there. My very first night that I got to Lewisburg, when I woke up in the morning, about this far from the window on the floor was snow, where it had snowed into the room. They would give you 2 extra blankets every single month. Now, if you say to yourself, at the end of winter, wouldn't you have like 25 blankets in there or something like that? It doesn't really work that way. What happens is you take the blankets and you tear them into strips about this wide, and you put them in a circle, like you coil it up, and then you light it on fire. And you create fire by using batteries and small pieces of tin foil. If you take a positive and a negative and you put tin foil to it, the tin foil will burst into flames, and you hold a little toilet paper over it. But we would light these on fire because a fire like that would literally heat up the room. And they know you're doing it. I had the warden, I was probably there 4 days, and I had a small fire that was burning off of an empty milk carton. And I was holding another milk carton on a string above it with water in it so that I could make coffee. And he walked by and banged on the window, and I thought, here we go, dude. Been here a week, I'm already getting written up. This was the warden. He said to me, is that Taster Choice or Keefy? Keefy's the cheap stuff, $2 something a bag. Tasters is expensive. And I said, it's Tasters. He's like, oh, Aristocat, and walked off. They don't much care. Roberto, catch me on the replay. Thank you for stopping in. You know what, Archie's mom, it was awful. In the summer, this is no lie. I swear to you, I'm telling you the truth. In the summer, they would come by and open the food slot. That's where they put your trays in because you eat in your cell, you never leave. And you had to put your arms out, and they would check to see how. Get that. There, look at there, I'm back. Sorry, people. This is I am in South America, so although this is really fast internet, occasionally we have a problem. If I do blackout, stick with me. I promise I'll be right back. This was a really tough place to do time, but I digress. The point of the matter is this: Diddy is going to find himself now doing a very different kind of time than he did earlier. All of the stuff that you've heard coming out of there, he didn't get in trouble for alcohol. He did. There was also the rumor that he fed 1,000 meals to guys on that yard during Thanksgiving, which, let's be honest, is a really kind thing to do. I promise you, there are rules in the federal system that are sacrosanct. There are rules that you simply cannot break. One of them is you ain't leaving your unit with food, right? You can cook inside your unit. You're not even supposed to hand food off to other people, because in a place that there is no money, then you need representation currency, fiat currency. So you can spend food, you can spend stamps, you can spend what they call photo ducats. Anything that you can buy for money can be traded for drugs. So they don't like you trading off food or doing anything like that. Ruth Anna, good to see you. So that story was BS. And as soon as it came out, I did a show and said, didn't happen. Amazingly, Johnny Scoville, are you ready? I had 3 people. I said at the time, 3 people. Since then, a 4th has popped in. All of these people had a brother at Fort Dix who said, no, that story is absolutely true. Now, whether that's a PR machine for Diddy, I don't have a big enough channel to have the odds of 4 people who have brothers at Fort Dix actually coming across my channel and leaving that comment. Again, doesn't pass the smell test. But that story was bullshit. And the way that I knew it was because I spent a lot of time in federal prison. And you couldn't buy enough food to cook a meal for 100 people. There are restrictions to what you can buy every time you go to store. And they said, oh, no. He had about 5 other people with money that went in with him. I don't care if he had 60 people with money. The other thing is they don't order enough of the, like, meat logs, for instance. Inside they call them meat chubs. You can't order enough of them because when the stuff comes in, there might be 70 of them for the entire yard. So if you happen to shop on Thursday, the people that went on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday bought them all up. It's just how you do time. It sucks. How did you keep your sanity? Did you experience any depression? Good Lord, yes. I experienced a lot of depression. Everybody in there does. I read books. I mean, tons of them. And then you do a lot of push-ups, right? And you go out to yard every single time you can. The white boys have a rule that you can never. Here's the thing. I understand they want you out there in case it's a riot or whatever, but you're locked in a cage. You know what I mean? So I guess they just want to make sure that we're well represented out there. Nothing in there makes a whole lot of sense. I'll tell you another quick one just because it's a funny story. I got there and my cellmate said to me, boy, did you pick a bad time to come to Lewisburg? And I said to him, is there a good time to come to Lewisburg? He said, well, 2 months ago might have been better. The white boys had decided that they wanted the pictures of their families to be able to have them in the cell because you weren't allowed to have that. So if you had kids, you had a wife, you couldn't have any of those pictures. They also wouldn't allow you to have a radio, which is really kind of tough because you have 23 hours a day to try to kill time. At least with a radio, you could, sort of. So they said every time they bring a meal, we refuse to give back the trays. And I don't know what it is about the trays in prison, but when you say I'm not giving the tray back, the way they take it is he's going to make an atomic bomb out of this tray. I mean, they freak out. So they would bring what's called the direct response team. We call them DIRT. They come up dressed like Ninja Turtles. They got pads. They got a big face screen. And they would do cell extractions on every single guy. Come in, pepper spray every single white guy cell to get the trays out. Beat the piss out of you. They're not going to send you to the hole because you're already in the hole, right? It's not like you go somewhere else. So they just put you back in your unit. And we did that for about a month straight. It got to a point where I swear to you that when they finally tapped out and gave us the radios and our stuff, everything tasted like pepper for weeks. I'm not joking. And every book in the cell, if you were reading a book, you would have to get up and scrub your hands 2 or 3 times because if you accidentally went to the bathroom without doing that little hand scrub, really, really uncomfortable. In fact, it became a running joke. Anytime you got a new cellmate, you go, hey, man, you want a cup of coffee? I'll make you one. Hey, books over there. Pick anything you want and read them because everything in there had been pepper sprayed so many times that if you were just flipping through the pages, your hands would be radioactive. And the first time you touched your Johnson, it was basically the end of the world. And it was
burning on the outside.
That's right. You were burning out there and I was burning inside. And my cellmate, who was really an odd cat, he's no longer with us. So I will tell you his name because you could look him up. I don't do that if the people are alive. But his name was Donald Scott Taylor. And his case was out of New Mexico. If you ever want to look it up, he was a lunatic. He chewed the ears off of a couple of cellies. He was really a different kind of guy. West Coast Fancy Nancy, good to see you. But I swear to you, they would bring the trays and he'd go, hey, man, can you spray a little pepper spray on that for me? He had been there for 7 years, Johnny Scoble. They changed the SMU policies because of him. Guys would go there to hide out. They didn't want to get sent to a yard. They would just keep violating. Anytime you got a write-up, they would say phase 1, day 1, meaning you got to start the whole thing all over again. All bad. Rest assured, their direct response is definitely to whoop your ass, and everybody probably, and yeah, you know what? It was the only place that I was ever in prison that carried pepper spray, every guy, and a nightstick. And 1 out of every 3 guards also had a taser. Like nightsticks, you can't carry a nightstick in a prison. But you see, you couldn't leave your cell without handcuffs on. So they were not too afraid of you taking that nightstick away. But they used to say, as soon as you got there, they would say there's the BOP, that's the Bureau of Prison. There's the BOP way, and there is the Lewisburg way. And the Lewisburg way was terrifying. I watched things happen there that I promise you, I could tell you the stories, but you wouldn't believe them. I saw a guy that decided he was going to slime, right? A nurse throw feces and urine out of a cup that he stirred up onto the person. This was a male nurse, Gaylord Falker, if you will, covered the guy's white jacket. And when the guy backed up, he reached out through the food slot and pulled every pill. They come in blister packs this big for the whole month, pulled all of them into the cell. He was ready to take an ass kicking and go to the shoe or do whatever, as long as he could eat a handful of pills before he did. This is not a crime that's respected among the fellas, right? So this was a really bad idea to do in the first place. But they put him like a crucifixion pose. They handcuffed him in a 4-point restraint face down and left him there for about a week. And when it was over, they marched him up and down the hall with his pants around his ankles, filled with his own excrement, and said, you want to throw stuff on people? This is what's going to happen. I kid you not. This place was ridiculous. Some guy in a different unit that had nothing to do with any of us attacked a cop. First, he took magazines and tied them around his body, like body armor, so that they couldn't tase him. And he was able, when they went in to try to do a cell extraction, to stick a cop in the neck with a homemade shiv, a knife. He broke off part of the top part of a tray, sharpened it, ended up sticking this guy in the neck. No big deal, no harm, no foul. I mean, the guy didn't die from it or anything. But they locked us down for 30 days, no showers, no nothing. 30 days, nothing. And when they came in, they did a cell search on every single cell, and they just destroyed your stuff. They ripped up the pictures of your family. I mean, they did some foul shit. But that was Lewisburg. And the moral of the story is don't go there if you don't want to go there. It wasn't a fun place to be. And I watched a couple of people die there. It was pretty nasty. Too many to dirty protests. Hold on one second. Do many do dirty protests in the U.S.? I don't know what a dirty protest is. If that's a dirty protest, it's not like certain races don't care if you do it. The white boys do not want you throwing. It makes you look like an animal, right? It makes you look like you should be in a zoo, and it's just not something that they put up with. But I digress yet again. I'm sorry, but that was a story that I do like to tell. Sean Combs now is stuck in a prison where every person that he has come into contact with since he got there has heard the BS story of how he and the president are homeboys, and it's just a matter of time before he walks out of there. You lose credibility with the fellas, that's not a good thing. And I'll tell you something else that I would bet you this thing right now on, right? Lop it off with a cleaver if I was wrong on this one. But he's been saying to people, hey, man, when I get out, I will do X, Y, and Z. Right? When I get out, I'll put money on your books. When I get out, I'll try to help you get a pardon. When I get out, all of these things, because the more people that feel like there's some hope that you can do something for them. Oh, no, they don't do that. You know why I didn't get it? They call that arts and crafts. Where I did time, they call that arts and crafts. And the only people that do that are what they call J-cats, category J. These are people that stop showering, people that play with their feces, do stuff like that. It is considered pretty bad form. Oh yeah, look, here's the thing. If you kill a cop, your odds of getting out of that situation alive, I would put them at 50-50 in most cases. They come in really pissed off if you attack a guard to the point where you're going to kill them. I mean, that's and there's a kind of a policy in the BOP. There are only a few things that you can get away with hitting a cop for, right? And he has to massively disrespect you. You can't just fire on a cop for no reason. They do tend to make examples out of inmates so that it doesn't happen again. I watched a guy across the hall get stomped to death. Robin Miners, good to see you. You know what, Robin Miners? I was thinking about you this morning. I was watching my son. Calhoun's Corner is doing content again, and I thought I ought to tell Robin Miners if I see her. But it's great to see Spanky back in the saddle. Puts a smile on. But yeah, they definitely tend to make examples, and that's not necessarily such a it's not such a bad thing, honestly. I'm not one of those guys that gets out and thinks that prison was a cool place to be. They don't round up the people that go to prison at universities and churches. These aren't people that volunteer at soup kitchens. These are people that break the law and do things that you need to be punished for. I was never messed up in my head about the fact that I was in prison. I've told this story many times before, but I was in a group therapy session, and they asked everybody to go around the room and say what you were in there for. And the first dude was like, I'm in here because my wife called the police and told them I was doing X, Y, and Z. And I'm not joking you. Every single person had the reason that they got done dirty. And when it got to me, I was like, I guess I'm a weirdo. I'm in here because I robbed banks and got caught. You know what I mean? I'm guilty, but no one else seems to be. It's almost a running joke how few people inside are guilty. Sean Combs, most assuredly, is working every angle he can to stay alive. You know what? I will do that, Jordan Breezy. Anytime someone says, that he may be innocent, I'm familiar with the case, but no, I have not done a deep dive on it, and I will be happy to. You have my word. I will do that. Be on the lookout for it. Arts and craft is painting and knitting for me. Well, it is for most people on the street. But you see, the people that do this, you wouldn't believe the stuff that happens. They'll make a chessboard out of, or they'll paint the Mona Lisa on the wall in their own excrement. So the arts and craft things just sort of took off. I'm sure somebody said it 40 years ago, and it just sort of stuck around. It is a suspicious case, and it's definitely one that I will deep dive because that's kind of my get down. I enjoy doing that. I talked about Diddy. If you're new to the channel, because we got a bunch of new people, we've been kind of blessed lately. If you're new to the channel, I probably spent more time deep diving the whole Diddy case than anyone else. And I got caught up in Diddy mania. And I started to believe every single thing that was said about this guy. And a lot of what was said about him was BS. I'm sorry, a lot of it was. People were doing stories about the tunnels under his house and all of these things. And I stopped taking people's word for it. Right. And I started to do research. So you start doing things like pulling plans. And the fact that they said that there were tunnels under his house in Florida, his house in Florida is literally sitting on an island. Now, I'm about 100 yards from the ocean right now where I live. You start digging a hole, you get 1.5 feet down, that hole is going to fill with water. It's kind of how that works if you're at sea level right on the water. To build a tunnel underneath there, you'd have to bring in an Army Corps of Engineers. The type of things that you would have to do to keep pumping the water out of the holes that you were digging, it was patently absurd. And a lot of the claims that people made about being sexually assaulted or raped are just, I'm sorry, they're bullshit. And some of them don't make sense. There was a pretty famous story, and I ran with it like everybody else did, of a guy that was abused in New York in a store while a Sean John sort of presser was going on there. Thousands of people jammed in this store. And the image in your head was them taking this poor young man into a back room, locking the door, right, pistol whipping him and forcing him to give Diddy a mouth hug while 5 guys watched. When you do research on the store, there is no door. There's literally a curtain. So there was a curtain between him and 5,000 people. And as a former criminal, you're not whipping out a pistol and threatening to shoot somebody in front of 5,000 people. It's just not something that happens. And all the guy would have had to do is go, hey! I mean, it turned out that was one of the cases that got thrown out because it's absolute bullshit. So I don't run with stories about Diddy anymore unless there's something that can be verified, right? So yesterday we did a story on Diddy where I just went over the guy's finances and I broke down just how much trouble he's in financially, because he's in a hell of a lot of trouble financially. If you didn't see that show, I suggest you go back and you take a look at it. Jordan says, thank you, Tommy. I changed my handle because I was using my government name and decided that may not be very safe. So I used my first name and then my dog Breezy. Well, Jordan, I think that's probably a better idea. If anybody knows just how ugly it is to allow people to find out who you are and where you are, it would be me. It's one of the reasons I live in South America. It was like the satanic panic. Everybody wanted a piece of the story. Yeah, the McMartin case, the McMartin daycare case. And you know how many people still believe that the McMartins were doing exactly what they had been accused of? They destroyed that family. I mean, destroyed that family. And what it was a bunch of really overzealous doctors that were doing hypnosis on kids. And the stories got crazier and crazier. And kids started talking about how they watched babies chopped up into pieces and just absolute ludicrousy. And that lit the match. And then it went into rock and roll. It went into everything. The West Memphis 3. If you listened to heavy metal, you were a Satanist. It got freaking out of control. And the Diddy case, although it may not have injured as many people, the Diddy case was worse. It's a little easier to not give a crap because Sean Combs kind of deserves whatever he got. Yeah. But I also know what it feels like to have people make up stories at wholesale about you. And it's a very distressing thing. He's a bad guy. He's done a lot of things that I believe absolutely he did. And there's a crap load of victims. The cases that are moving through the court are legit, right? But there are so many cases that weren't. There are people that are willing to say, this man did this to me just to get money. And that's unfortunately the litigious society that America has created. You can sue your way to millions of dollars. And you know what? If you're a victim, if you survived that kind of hellacious abuse, it's attempted murder of a soul, right? Rape is a word that gets used a lot. Maybe not on YouTube because it demonetizes you and they don't push your content. But rape should be called attempted murder of a soul, because what it does to people is absolutely incredible. And it's a lifetime damage that takes a hell of a lot of dedication to get through it. A lot of counseling, a lot of therapy. It's a hard thing. Yeah, that story didn't make sense to me either. Do you get homesick sometimes for this shithole America has become? Interesting phraseology. No, I'll be honest with you, I don't. I miss my family. And I don't. It may be a terrible thing to say, but where I live is paradise. It really is. And my dad used to tell me stories of what it was like in the 1950s, right? And where I live now is like 1950s America. It really is. It's we have technology the same that you have there. I can go to a mall and go to an Apple store, but the prices of things and the way that people get stuff done is just completely different here. I don't need an automobile, which is lovely because to me, automobiles scare the crap out of me. I spent too much time as a criminal. And I get pulled over. I got pulled over doing nothing wrong. I had gotten out of prison. I held up a watch I had just bought in a red box to look at it. And the guy thought I was on a cell phone. So he pulled me over and I'm like, why am I getting pulled over? And when he came up to the car, I looked at him and my heart was beating so fast and I hadn't done anything wrong, but I thought I may as well tell this guy the truth. And I put my hand up and went, look at this. He goes, why are you doing that? I said, because I'm a convicted bank robber. I'm out on probation. I said, I got a bad criminal record. When you run it, you're going to decide to tear this car apart. It scares crap out of me. It's a lifetime of being a bad dude. And the cop was so cool. He put his hand on my arm and he goes, hey man, I'm just pulling you over for using that cell phone, the red one. I picked up the watch box. I said, I was just looking at a watch I bought. I wasn't on the phone. And he goes, oh. And he goes, I got pulled over by a cop about 3 weeks ago. He goes, I wasn't in uniform, scared the hell out of me. Tommy, if you do arts and crafts on the walls of your cell, do they bring the fire hose and wash you in the cell down to disinfect the place? No, sadly, you know what they do? They bring in a group of guys who do that for a living inside. They have been put through biohazard training. It's big money in terms of prison. You can make about $120 a month, but they go in and clean up the blood after somebody gets stabbed, or they go and clean up the arts and crafts remnants if somebody wants to do something nasty. But no, it's not. It should be, something that protects the inmate. It's not. After the Cassie video, no president of either party would pardon him. Right? Thank you. This is common sense, is it not, Kendra? So why the hell is it that TMZ has no problem running with that story? I've said this, and I'm going to keep saying it. TMZ has become a propaganda arm for. I'm not busting on the guy. I'm really not. But he's got a massive platform. And at one time, they were a fairly reliable place to go for news. There was no, and I mean no, truth whatsoever to that rumor. And that rumor didn't come out of somebody from the White House. But when you're TMZ, like if I came on right now and said, hey, someone I know very close to the Alan Jackson defense team said this, and this, you're going to go, yeah, whatever. Because of TMZ's reputation, Harvey Levin can bullshit anything he wants. And because of his relationship with Mark Garagos, let me explain something in case you guys missed this. Mark Garagos has worked for Diddy forever, right? His daughter is on Diddy's defense team. For him to go on a show, let's say he went on TMZ and talked about Diddy's case, that is a problem. In the eyes of the law, that is a problem. And they had hearings about this. The way he got away with it is he could do his own podcast. That's not a conflict. That's no problem. So he wasn't actually going on TMZ, you see. Mark Garagos had his podcast. TMZ had theirs, and the two of them do a show together, but he's not actually going on TMZ. If that's not a way to jerk off the law, I don't know what is, right? But this is who TMZ has become, and that's a sad thing in my opinion. You know what? This is a good decision. Honestly, it is. Now, I kind of have to, because there's truth to everything that Harvey says to some degree, right? But he goes hog wild. I shouldn't say that. Some stories are absolute bullshit. But there are stories that he does where he breaks the news. And the reason he does, look, if I had a budget of $4 or $5 million a year to pay off informants, people that were going to call me and say, hey, I got a story. Great, I'll give you 15 grand. What do you got? I got a picture of Diddy on the yard. Well, hell, I'll give you 50. That's how these things get out. You call TMZ with a story, trust me, they're paying you. And they'll wire transfer that puppy to you almost instantly, because that's how it goes down. And most YouTubers, like small YouTubers, even good-sized YouTubers, right, don't have a budget to do those kind of things. You know what? I'm doing a show on this. So hold tight for the Johnson Hay lawsuit, because I'm going to be doing a show on this coming up. In fact, I'm going to be doing a show on Diddy lawsuits as they start to move through the system, and I'm going to give you my opinion on them. Look, I'm not a lawyer, man. I married one once. I married my defense attorney. Not one of my better decisions, but I spent a decent amount of time in that system, far more than I should have. But I just bring opinions, people. I do a hell of a lot of research before I do, and with all due respect to everybody doing this stuff, I also try to bring common sense. There are a lot of things that get said, especially when it concerns the federal system, because the federal system will tell you nothing. If you hear them say, we reached out, hey, Avac, good to see you. If you hear them say, we reached out to the prison isn't going to tell you anything. I told you that my old cellmate, Donald Scott Taylor, he's dead. He died at Victorville. I can't find out how. There's no way. If you go and you put his number in or his name, they just say he's no longer in the system as of such and such a day. So I went and had to start going through all kinds of hoops to try to find out what happened. And it said he was found dead in his cell. He was 31. So he didn't die of natural causes, but they don't let information out. They just straight up don't do it. So if information comes out, it's from somebody that bullshitted, right? Somebody that wasn't supposed to leaked this information. And if they get found out, they're going to get fired. They might even get prosecuted because the BOP does not leak information. They will not verify that somebody got in trouble for something, and that Harvey Levin can run with that. We called the prison for verification about Sean Combs drinking, but they wouldn't, there was no verification for that. Of course there isn't. They wouldn't even talk to you. If you called and said, is Sean Combs in that prison? They'd say, you can look him up on the inmate locator. They don't talk to people like that. They just simply don't. The only time you got a shot at communicating is if you call up and say, hey, my name is Tommy. My father just passed away and I need to tell my brother. They would go and get the chaplain, and then I would get on the phone with the chaplain. The chaplain would go get the inmate, bring them down, and there would be a three-way call. Before that happens, they're going to want a fax or some kind of an email from either a police department or somebody that can verify that the person's dead. You ain't getting around anything in the BOP. It's not like regular prisons. It's just different. Wow, Tommy, that's a Lifetime movie. You know what? Out of respect to the ex-wife, I don't get into details of the story, but it would have made a hell of a Lifetime movie. AVAC, you are so welcome. I am going to make an effort to put more photos up and things of that nature, especially if I'm doing a show like the one that I did on Diddy the other day. It helps to put up a graph. It helps to put up some stuff so that you can actually see this stuff and make it in a way that is more understandable. One of the reasons that I avoid it, honestly, is because when this channel started, it was about connection. It was about a dude sitting in front of a camera and talking to people and answering questions. And that's kind of a legit point. However, AVAC's right. The more that I use some visual stuff, the better off it is. The knee jerk is to protect the child. It takes opening your hand and letting them have consequences for their actions. Saving them teaches them they can do anything, and parents will save them. You know what? That's a great comment, because sadly, it's the absolute truth. It's what we're watching happen in the Nick Reiner case. And again, I'm not blaming the parents. You know, we do the best that we can as parents, right? It's just kind of how it works. Do we do it right? Not always. Doesn't make us bad parents, right? It just means that we're getting into a situation we know nothing about. When I used to work one-on-one with people, right, when I first opened this channel, the number of people that reached out to me who were parents who said, I just found a bag of dope, I think, in my kid's room. And I'd go, you think? And they'd go, I never did drugs in my life. Okay, well, that's, if you happen to have done drugs, like the first time my kid got high, I busted him in 10 seconds. And I wasn't even in the same room. I like telling this story. It cracks me up, but because he's a great kid now. But I called him on the phone and I said, hey, how you doing? He said, good. I go, I was asking him about his day at school, and he started giggling. What was the word? Do you remember? What did I say to Spanky that time he was first high? Oh, I said, what did you do today? And he goes, do today. That's funny. Do today. And I was like, you smoked a little pot today, didn't you? That's what you did. And he was like, how did you know? I'm like, because people don't laugh at do today unless they just smoked a joint. And my kid, he was an honest kid. He didn't progress into too much harder stuff. And he's sober now, which is lovely. Bureau of Prison didn't tell me my loved one was in the segregated housing unit and had no visits. And I traveled 6 hours for nothing. I wish I had $1 for every time I've heard that story. Inside and out, I would be rich. Wouldn't have to be doing YouTube. It is absolutely remarkable just how ugly it is. Leslie, you're right. Love is weaponized. And here's the thing, whether or not Nick was temporarily insane or not, he absolutely weaponized love. Someone who becomes codependent becomes a target for the people who are who have the problem, the addict, the mental illness, whatever, because you learn to manipulate people who you know are codependent. And if you don't understand codependency, look it up. It's a very important thing. It is when you get addicted to somebody else's chaotic lifestyle, and you are addicted to them in the same way they are addicted to the drug, and you will do absolutely everything. Dude today is funny, and I'm sober at the moment. It is kind of funny, right? But the way he laughs about it, he goes, dude today. This sounds so funny. I was like, oh God, here we go. Do you think Trump's going to take Greenland? Does Europe have to show concern? No, the president isn't going to, in my opinion, he's not going to attack Greenland. I don't think that there's any chance in hell of that happening. They went into South America because there had been an arrest warrant for that cat going back to 2020, right? They went in there to extract a guy that took one of the wealthiest, most prosperous countries in this hemisphere and destroyed it because they just wanted to profit themselves. And if you were in this part of the world, they're all stoked about it. I promise you. Everybody in South America thinks it's one of the greatest things that ever happened. I don't care what they're telling you on the news. I live here, and people are pretty happy about it. And I'm not getting political. I'm not. But I'll tell you something. My only issue, right? My only issue is drugs. It's how I vote. I vote for the guy that's going to shut down the border. I vote for the guy that's going to keep dope out of America. Everything else, we'll see what happens. But that's how I vote. So I voted for the guy. I don't particularly like him. And I certainly don't particularly like him at the moment. And mostly because of the Epstein stuff. But there's no chance in hell that if the other party had gotten in, that they would have gone and gotten this guy. And this guy was destroying lives. The country that I live in, I filed paperwork to become a citizen. I did everything right. I got my visa. We're doing all of it according to Hoyle. However, our immigration problem in this country is people running from Venezuela because they can't get toilet paper in a country that has more natural resources than just about any place on earth. So that guy was destroying his people. And, once Elon Musk put Starlink above it, I could see it down here, but I know you guys weren't seeing it in America. People waving American flags, right? Yelling the Independence Day. Pretty happy people that guy's gone. Knowledge and transparency. It helped bringing up my daughter. It was hard not showing reaction when she opened up. She's an amazing adult now. Good for you, Lisa Murphy. For real. Connection is a beautiful thing, man. Dude name's funny and I don't get high. Yeah, do me a favor. Jordan Breezy says smack that like button. Do it. If you haven't hit subscribe, do it. I don't know that we're going to get to the Harvey Levin documentary today. We will absolutely get to it tomorrow. The reason for that is it's dropping, I believe, 9 o'clock East Coast time. I am on the West Coast of South America, which, believe it or not, puts me on the East Coast of the United States in terms of time zones. So it's going to be a little late for me to chase all of that down. Yeah, you're right. And it's been this way a long time. Drugs have become a part of the culture. A table full of cocaine is a status symbol in Hollywood. Rapping about it. And for people that don't have the money to buy a table full of cocaine, you had people talking about scissor up, right, which was taking promethazine and hydrocodone cough syrup, mixing it with 7-Up and putting some booze in it, right? The M30 counterfeit Percocet kills more people than cancer in the United States of America. It's just the way it is, right? The number one cause of death in America is overdose. And unfortunately, it's so damn just accepted. I remember once a woman called me and said, I just don't know how to talk to my kids about drugs. I said, put on a movie. You got a 1 in 5 chance of there being a drug reference in it. And it can be what you start talking about. And I swear to you, you know what she said to me? She goes, we don't watch movies like that. I said, what's the last movie you watched? She said, Flashdance. I said, really? There's a scene in Flashdance with drugs. She goes, no, there isn't. I'm like, yeah. When he first gets to the school, a guy tries to hand him a joint. He runs in and flushes it down the toilet. Trust me. If you're paying attention, there's always something that can open up a dialogue. And if you're talking to your kids about drugs, the odds of them doing drugs are considerably less. And then people would say to me, my kid doesn't listen to me. Oh, they do. They may act like they don't. They may piss and moan about the fact that they have to listen to you, but they listen to you more than anybody else on earth. This has been studied ad nauseum. You just have to persevere through and have conversations that are uncomfortable. I got a master's degree in talking to my kids about things that are uncomfortable. You know what helps? Go to prison. Then you got to get out and talk to your kid about why you went to prison. And after that, I mean, where are you going to have a stumbling block talking to your kid about anything? I had to admit to being a bank robber. It's not an easy conversation. Yes, the Venezuelan people are so excited. That shows Maduro was a horrible leader. Praying for the people of Venezuela. I'm glad you are. It should be done every day. Honestly, they have a long road ahead of them. And to be honest, removing somebody like this doesn't always work. We do have examples when it did. We have examples when it didn't, right? When the Shah of Iran left and the Ayatollah took over, the Shah was horrible. We put him in there and he was bad dude, really bad dude. By the way, that was the Republican Party. So there is a long and scary history of all of the shit that we've done with the Central Intelligence Agency to go in and try to topple governments. It normally does not work out very well. So I understand the concern of all of the people. However, Maduro and his wife being in jail. Oh no, those are two people that need to die in prison. Plain and simple. The guy ran a cartel. He did. You can look it up. I promise you, I'm not BSing you on this. It was called the Cartel of the Sun, Del Sol. This is why Scared Straight series was so popular. Yeah, and it worked for a lot of people. Unfortunately, believe it or not, Leslie, for the guys that kind of bucked up, there were people for whom that actually looked like, and I'm not trying to jump up on a soapbox or anything else, but so many people who are incarcerated in prison have no male role model at all in their life. And for some people that went in there and saw the first tough dude they ever saw standing up and yelling at them, they almost wanted to be around that environment. And it's one of the reasons that some places have done away with it. Scared Straight made some guys want to go to prison. I know that is jacked up, but if you have no male figure in your life, there's a gang in prison ready to treat you like their son. I promise you, they're going to discipline you when you do something wrong. They're going to hook you up when you do something right. And by, hook you up, I mean, put a tattoo on your arm, right? Get you drunk, give you drugs, not healthy shit, but it's certainly a male role model. And it's why gangs are so prevalent. When we started to eliminate male role models out of people's lives, gangs took over. Guys look for that kind of stuff as they're growing up, especially when they're in their mid to late teens. You have to be open with kids. You're 100% right. Parents need to educate themselves with social media. Yeah. They also need to take a look at what their kids are looking at on social media. The number of parents who are just shocked at the apps that their kids have when they finally take the time to look. You never want to have to be a spy around your kid. It's a shit way to be a parent. But if you're not at least looking in, putting parental controls and things like that, the internet is a place where your kid can get raped. Maybe not in person, but the internet is a terrifically dangerous place. Roblox, that video game, if you look into what happens on that, they have these little sections that you can go to, and these are avatars, but they're avatars in there having sex. I don't need my kid looking at that, right? And there's no parental control unless the parent takes control. Do you think waking up in prison was a shock to Nick, a result of his poor planning, and I know where you're going with that, or is this what he wanted? Was infamy better than not being famous? I don't think he was shocked. I don't believe, and this isn't going to be popular with some people, but I don't buy the temporary insanity thing. I don't. I think when it all comes out in the wash, this is Roblox. There you go. When it all comes out in the wash, I think what we're going to find out is he did not want to take his medication. This is very common. By the way, I think I got 4 comments yesterday from people that say, I have the exact same disorder. It is a difficult disorder to have. We're constantly adjusting medication, but these people are living and thriving. The difference between those people and Nick is Nick was an entitled little piece of shit. I'm sorry. But if you listen to his own words, I'm not being cold-hearted. I promise you I'm not. But if you listen to his own words, this is a guy that said, I can do anything I want and not get in trouble. He said that on a podcast. I'm a spoiled Hollywood rich kid. I can do anything I want and not get in trouble. That's not bragging. That's begging for somebody to put up boundaries. Honest to God, whether it's a pet, whether it's anybody, if you don't put up boundaries, you confuse the shit out of the kid. For real. They don't know what they can do. They don't know what they can't. So they're just going to keep pushing until a boundary is put up. And sadly, what did we do? We did a show on this. 5 911 calls out to the house in Brentwood, and he was never arrested. What does that tell him? I can get away with anything. My parents' fame and money, I can get away with anything. It seems as if Maduro's government is still in power, but USA is running this country is a different tactic Trump is using to avoid a civil war. Here's the thing. I think that once you topple that government, then the CIA is going to go to work, and they're going to weed people out and put people in. And our Central Intelligence Agency scares me more than the police or the FBI. And with the life I led, the police and the FBI were pretty scary to me. But the Central Intelligence Agency, the people that brought you MK Ultra, that's a scary group of people that don't give a shit. They just don't. And I think that they run America as much as any politician ever did. They're the reason that we have drug problems in the United States. It is not a coincidence that when we were in Vietnam, right, the Golden Triangle, tons of heroin, the first heroin habit in the United States, the first epidemic of heroin started right after Vietnam. We went then to South America, right, where there was tons of cocaine, trying to work with the Contra rebels over the Sandinista government because we didn't want communism coming up to the United States, right? we were flying guns down there that we were buying from Adnan Khashoggi, who was moving money through Jeffrey Epstein. No shit, you can look this up. So all of this was going on, and we were bringing back cocaine. You may have seen the movie. Tom Cruise played Barry Seal, the guy that was flying all of the blow from South America to the United States, landing it in Arkansas, where they had no problem with the governor at the time, a guy by the name of Bill Clinton, didn't much care what happened there, right? But when all of this was going on, we had a cocaine epidemic called crack, and it was the worst thing that had ever happened to this country. The crack wars were insane. Then we go into Afghanistan. What do they have in Afghanistan? Heroin, crap loads of it, right? And then the heroin epidemic breaks off in the United States. Everywhere the CIA shows up, the dope comes back. And the reason that they do that is they don't want to have to go in front of Congress and say, hey, we need $400 million, right? And then the Congress has to sign off on any project they do over a certain amount of money. So instead, they just make their own money. That way they can go and play whatever games they want geopolitically around the world. They can have people in every country trying to topple governments, trying to swing elections. For all the bitching we did about, what if Russia was messing with everybody messes with everybody's elections. We do it. We do it every single time someone's getting elected. Believe that shit, right? It's just kind of how it works. And it's ugly as hell, man. You got to fund black ops somehow. You're right. Bill Clinton's nickname was the Hoover, says Energy Woman. Yeah, apparently his beak was more of a portable table vacuum. That is something that people have said. The Rob Reiner and his wife being murdered by their son put me in a dark place for about 2 weeks. I couldn't recover from knowing this. I'm better now. You know what? I think it's still putting a lot of people in a tough place. My brother, a psychiatrist, became a crack addict. Leslie, so many people got addicted to crack. And the number of victims from that, including a man named Freeway Ricky Ross, who was recruited by the CIA to be the first person selling crack cocaine. And it was supposed to just stay in California, which is one of the dumbest concepts in the whole world. No. That's the kind of thing that makes drug dealers foam at the mouth. So guys in California who's got a homeboy in Chicago or someone in New York cooking cocaine just became a nationwide epidemic. And you know what's ironic? What's ironic was, and you can look up the video of it, you see Joe Biden stand up with like a 25-cent piece, might have even been a nickel. And he says, if you get caught with a crack rock this big, there's a mandatory minimum sentence of this much time. And then his son videotapes himself holding a bag this big full of it, right? We have a two-tiered legal system in this country. And you know what's going to be proof of that, like you've never seen? If they don't hire a new attorney for Nick Reiner, you're going to see what a public defender can do in a case like this versus what somebody like Alan Jackson can do. And I don't mean he's a better attorney. I just mean that without a budget, you're not hiring expert witnesses at $250 to $500 a pop. And you're not going to be out sending private investigators to every one of those rehabs. You're not going to have the resources that a rich person has. Doesn't mean a rich person can't be found guilty. They just have a way better chance of being found not guilty, right? O.J. Simpson's legal team steamrolled California because they were willing to drop 25 to 50 million if that's what it took to win. And they found the best of the best in every single aspect. And they were willing to bastardize the truth, play a race card that could have just destroyed race relations in California for decades. They didn't give a shit about any of that, right? They didn't. And then throw onto that California put on the worst prosecution in the history of prosecutions. Maybe up until the Casey Anthony trial. That's pretty damn bad too. My wife comes from a family dynamic where she was never disciplined and able to do whatever. She talks about craving some rules and structure as a kid. Now she has a real problem disciplining our kids. Yeah, this is an unfortunate thing. We learn an awful lot from our parents, good, bad, or otherwise, right? And not having any kind of boundaries put up is a real problem. Public defenders don't have the cash flow to hire experts. They do, but the expert, Lisa, will be $5,000 instead of $250,000. You're damn right. Karen Reed would be in prison right now for a crime she didn't do if she had a public pretender. I love that term, by the way. The thing is, it's a free market economy. So the best of the best lawyers in the world can charge ungodly money for their services, especially since, you hire a doctor, you want to hire the best doctor possible. Why? Because your life may depend on it. If you need a defense attorney, your life depends on it, right? Maybe not for a DWI, but if you need a defense attorney because you've been killed, or you've killed somebody rather, or being accused of killing somebody, you better get the best damn defense attorney you can, and that's going to cost you. Look, it is estimated that the bill to get $50,000 to $500,000, right? That's a hellacious amount of money, especially considering the trial hasn't even started yet. You just entered a not guilty, plea. I think you're right. Nick's siblings didn't want their parents criticized as mitigating factors during sentencing. Here's the thing. It wouldn't have even been a mitigating factor. That's going to be part of this case. Even if they're not doing it directly, this is going to sound crappy, but it's probably malfeasance if they don't. The attorney's going to have to do the best that they can, right, to make sure that this person doesn't get the death penalty or get life in prison without the possibility of parole. That's their job. And if the best of that is saying that his parents were the reason that this happened, oh, I promise you they'll do that, right? They will do that. That's called the Slayer law in California. It's called the Slayer law. This is the thing. Allegedly, right? He couldn't get his inheritance to pay for his own defense. His brother and sister could use their inheritance to do whatever they want. They're not accused of anything. So they could pay for it. He also, in theory, could use money that he got from Carl Reiner's death, his grandfather. But, and this is alleged, I can't chase this down as true, but there are a lot of people that are claiming that he had restrictions on that money, which would make sense because of his lifestyle, right? But there's a chance that was the case. It's also being reported by a lot of channels, and I'm not telling you this is a fact because I can't prove it. But there's a lot of people that are saying that Romy, the sister, is doing everything she can to lock down any of his funds so that he can't pay for an attorney. Don't know if that's true, but I saw it on at least 5 channels yesterday. Will Cuba suffer now from American controlling all of the oil coming from Venezuela? Will this cause their government to fail because of the situation getting worse? My gut says that if Cuba has a problem getting oil, they'll find it from somebody else that will happily step in there as a stopgap, especially countries that don't like the United States of America. I don't know that will be a problem for Cuba, but we will find out. Here's the thing. I'm not trying to bum anybody out, right? But if you want to put this to critical thinking, the United States of America is in what is referred to as the death debt spiral, right? Eventually, the amount of money that you owe, the interest on that money annually will be more than the amount of money that you bring in from taxes. When that happens, the country ain't long for staying alive anymore. And you start having to have yard sales where you sell off tons of land, right? Like government land to other countries, or you start selling off aircraft carriers and bombs and guns, right? The other option is you go to war. And you go to war preferably with the people that you owe money to. So is this a play for World War III that's coming? I'll be really honest with you, man. One of the reasons that I left America is because of the death spiral. I spent a lot of time in prison reading an awful lot of books. And there's just things that make you really concerned. The United States of America has a currency that's not backed by anything. So they can keep printing more of it. If your currency is fiat, meaning not backed by anything, then that's an issue. You can just continue to print more money. That devalues your money. And at this point, the only reason that $100 is worth $100 is because the world believes that it is. There is a lot of talk about the world currency, the dollar, being replaced by maybe the yen. And the reason for that is, if you buy oil, you're buying it in US dollars. So if you happen to live in a country that doesn't spend US dollars, you got to buy US dollars to then go buy the oil. Once that gets taken away, we lose a huge foothold on the planet. And there aren't a lot of ways to get out of this problem. There really aren't. And war is one of them. So it's a frightening thing. When Maduro stayed in power, he sold Citgo for pennies on the dollars to Russia, even Texas and U.S.-based Citgo refineries. Yeah, it's one of the reasons we went in there. If we went down there and built the infrastructure, then his predecessor, Chavez, kicked everybody out, And then they just started handing that stuff over. They didn't have the ability to keep it running. Everything that we had in there was running at less than about 20%. This is the reason everyone's like, why are they taking oil tankers? Well, because they're selling American oil. You know, they had the rights to that land. They had leases. They had things like that. It's an issue. Smart move. They want baskets of currency to replace the petrodollar. Yeah, look, we're in a precarious place as the United States, and I'm not trying to be a doomsdayer or any of that, but there are people that prep and get ready for this stuff. I chose to go someplace that if the ship hit the sand, I can go 100 yards and fish for my food. We have gas in here that doesn't come up through the ground and you pay a gas bill. We have gas containers that are 75 kilograms. I can get one replaced for $3.75. I can continue to cook. We have a backup system for the refrigerator. We're kind of prepared, right? But I would suggest that people do.
That's $270 delivered, by the way.
Yes, that is delivered. They'll even take it upstairs and install it for another $1.50. Moving towards digital, programmable, trackable money and Chinese social credit scores. So a lot of truth to that too. Here's the problem with the digital currency. If they decide you're a dick, they can turn it off, right? When they start replacing currency with clicks, and I hate to sound like a tinfoil hat wearing guy, but I have always believed that Bitcoin, right, and Satoshi, the guy that allegedly started it with the white papers, was just to prove that they can make an unhackable currency. That was what that was all about, in my humble opinion. And Bitcoin can't be hacked, right? Web 4 is really it's the blockchain technology is a whole lot different than what we usually do on the internet, and people don't get hacked with blockchain. There's going to be a change in the world. I'm just happy that I don't live in the same one. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. Shit's scary when we start making adjustments to draft laws. I said that 26 years ago. Yeah, I agree with you. I have a friend who was in Afghanistan in the army. They had Afghan counterpart. They cooked and baked pot and everything and couldn't eat what the guys would bring. I'll tell you something else. I have been contacted since I started the lifeboat by, I almost said 100, dozens and dozens and dozens of soldiers that said, I was in Afghanistan. My job was just to guard poppy fields. It's got to make you feel good, right? Your kids sign up for the military to go to the other side of the planet, and what they end up with is a job guarding dope, right? For warlords. I think we are headed toward the American Union, and the Amero will be the new digital currency. It could happen. Do you think they can get rid of traditional money? Because I am not interested. I would start putting money in other places. Hold on one second. Calhoun, I will let you know as soon as I know. Sorry, I'm live at the moment, but I will get back to you, I promise. Love you. Sorry, that's my son, people. Do I think, I would start to put some money in places that aren't money. I would get a little gold. I'd get a little silver, right? I would get things that no matter what the new currency turns into, you can convert it, right? That to me would be a pretty good idea. Nikki, I don't know what part Europe plays. I really don't. I know that traditionally Europe tends to side with the United States of America, but this is a weird world we live in now, right? Governments have been able to bullshit us really easily for a long time, going all the way back to before Pearl Harbor, and certainly Pearl Harbor. They've been able to lie to us for a really long time. Now, social media and people that take the time to take and look at things in a more critical way opens the eyes to people that traditionally would not have had open eyes, right? The term red pill and blue pill has become, it's part of our culture now, isn't it? The red pill means, it's from the movie The Matrix, but it means that you got to a point where you don't believe the things that are being said anymore, right? You don't believe the hype. For the longest time, I used to talk about MK Ultra, and people would say to me, "Man, it's a conspiracy theory, man. You're a lunatic." The problem is that all of a sudden, the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA requests, MK Ultra is a fact. I can tell you who destroyed the evidence. I can tell you who started it. I did an entire show.
Yeah.
You can now literally go online and tell who's been in the military, who's not been in the military. You can go online and look up just about anything if you know how to do it. Research through the computer has gotten to an art form, and it's getting a whole lot more difficult to bullshit everybody. The U.S. has a bad reputation right now. Well, there's something to that. But the U.S.'s really bad reputation, believe it or not, is more inside the U.S. than outside the U.S., at least from a South American standpoint, because I don't live in the United States of America. But down here, they don't. Down here, they feel like Donald Trump is cleaning stuff up. And whether you agree with that or disagree with that, honestly, makes no difference to me whatsoever. But I'm telling you, because I'm 150 yards from the Pacific Ocean in South America, and everybody I talk to is from South America. He's viewed differently down here than he is in America. Hi, Tommy. My daughter says you're the wholesome version of Frank Gallagher. That's absolutely great. Honest to God, I can't wait to tell my mom that. She's going to get a kick out of it. Every day there's a new crisis. Minneapolis, Greenland, got to rush astronauts back to the ISS. My head is spinning to keep up. I'll tell you something else. The greatest thing that has ever happened to me is the fact that I don't get programmed. I mean it. If you spend 8 months, 9 months away from the United States of America, where you don't see billboards, you're not bombarded every time you go through a checkout line, it changes who you are. It changes how you look at people. From the time I was 13 on, every car commercial that I ever saw had me convinced that if I bought the right car, that hot chick in the ad would be sitting next to me in a car. The sad thing is, the only reason I thought she was hot is because they sold me that as well. You get down here and women of every single size, shape, weight, height, right? Big breasts, no breasts, large butts, no butts. They all walk around with the same level of confidence. And it's one of the most beautiful things you've ever seen. You'll see women 270 pounds on the beach in a bikini walking around like they're Cindy Crawford. And you know what? That may be the coolest thing on earth. Honest to God. From a guy that has spent a long time now working with people that struggle with addiction, and half of them because of body issues, it's a beautiful thing to live in a world where you're not programmed by every single thing you see. And I also don't buy into all of the doomsday shit. And I don't buy into any story that I'm told through media. The media is bought and paid for. It hasn't been media in so long, it's terrifying. If you're watching ABC, NBC, Fox, CNN, you're watching any of them, they're not there to give you the news. They're there to sell Mercedes-Benzes.
Back when there was one news show, it happened at 6 o'clock, it was over.
That's it.
That's what it was.
Right. When you had 3 choices for news, it was 6 o'clock at night. Then there was nothing else. They gave you the news. And when you went through a school to become a journalist, they said things like this: if the audience knows who you voted for, you're a failure. If the audience knows whether you like or hate the president, you're a failure. And what you got was news. Now what you get is opinion. Now, I do opinion here, but I'm not a news show. And I don't wrap myself up as one. I'm an ex-convict. I'm a convicted bank robber. I've got some insight into crime, and I've got a butt ton of insight into drugs. So those are the things that I primarily talk about, right? And occasionally I talk about cats, because I'm a big fan of cats. In fact, I like them almost more than people. Check this out. Speaking of the devil, look at that thing. Look at that huge, that is a Maine Coon cat that made the trip from the United States down to us. And if you've been on the channel any length of time, you know that's Katy Perry. Good time. 30 hours with a cat flying south. 2 cats. Squirrel Nut Zipper, I don't know where she's at.
It wasn't 30 hours of flight time.
It was 30 hours of travel time. You need an honorary degree in pharmacology. I was a street corner pharmacist for a small bit of time in my life. But you get to a point, at least for me, where you say, that's funny. You get to a point where you go, well, here's the deal. Someday I'm going to stand in front of my maker. If you don't believe in God, that's okay. I do. And someday I'm going to sit in front of my maker and he's going to say to me, you pissed away the first 40 years of your life. Or he's going to say, you made so many mistakes in the first 40 years. I'm glad that you took those mistakes to try to help people from making the same ones. Right. And the fruit of a misspent youth is often not very productive. My goal on a daily basis is to try to live a better life than I did in the first half. And I'm not perfect by any stretch, but I don't do heroin. I don't steal from people. I'm pretty happy with where I'm parked at the moment. Right. Wendy R., what did I miss? If you're new to the channel, Oh no, you had to put down your cat. Oh,
Wow.
Wendy R. Can we get some ones? If you're new to the channel, this is prayers for people. It's also virtual hugs. It's anything along those lines because it is a beautiful thing. Tommy, we love you. You rock. Sorry, I've not been able be live chatting on your online. I work days. Christy Wolf, no apologies here, man. For real. I'm just happy that you're able to show up. I'm going to be doing more shows during the day. Got a lot of requests from that in the comments section. So for the foreseeable future, I'm going to be trying to do 2 shows a day. I definitely want to get back into true crime. I just want to do it better. There are certain things that I covered that I'm proud of. The Diddy stuff, I'm not. So when I talk about Diddy now, I'm definitely doing it a lot differently. And certainly the Reiner situation, I'm going to be covering that to the bitter end. Doesn't mean I'm going to put up stuff when there's nothing to talk about, but we're probably going to be looking at a lot to talk about for the foreseeable future. So I will be covering it. I'm not going to cover stuff for the purpose of getting clicks, but if I can weigh in on something, I'm going to. If not, I'm probably going to be going over old cases. While in prison, I didn't read fiction, right? I read nonfiction, which means a lot of the cases that people bring up and talk about, I can usually go, I know exactly what you're talking about. And it makes it a lot easier to go back and research on it. I have a Marilyn Monroe show coming up. It's more research than I've ever done on anything else. And every time I think I'm ready to roll on it, I find one more source that I got to go and research. Marilyn's story is maybe the most fascinating, unsolved, right? Or allegedly unsolved, depending on how you look at it. But there's a lot to talk about with that one. I will be covering that. And there's a lot of other ones that are coming up. So do stick around for that. I appreciate anybody taking their time to be here. You certainly don't have to apologize if you're not. Wendy, God bless you. I'll tell you something. Fur babies to me are as just about as real as any family member, and certainly better than 99% of friends. I love my cats. I can't imagine going through that with Squirrel Nut Zipper. I'm fortunate that both of these kitties are young, but I have, and I've been blessed my whole life. I tell people this and they never believe it, but I am 55. I'm on my 3rd cat, and there really wasn't too much time when I didn't have one. My first cat lived to 21. My second cat lived to 19. I've been very blessed with how long the kitties live. You know what I mean? Very blessed. So I do appreciate all of you tuning in. If you're just getting here, Sean Diddy Combs ain't getting out of jail. The reason he's not getting out on an appeal is because Judge Rune Subramanian did everything right. His sentence is not extreme. In fact, if you compare it to other sentences from the same time period, his is smaller than most, right? It's not a black or a white issue. Half of the sentences that I found of 10 years or more were white people. A lot of Italian names for whatever reason. But this is the other thing. The judge did not go above the guidelines. He went below the recommendations. There will be 3 recommendations. One comes from the probation department after they do what's called a PSI, right? A pre-sentence investigation, or that's actually what the state calls it. In the feds, they call it a PSR, a pre-sentence report. They're going to recommend how much time they think Sean Diddy Combs should get. Then the prosecution is going to ask for probably a longer sentence. And then the defense is going to say, you should let him walk out, give him a bag of weed and maybe $100, right? They're never going to ask for any time. They want time served because the defense's job is to do that. If the judge decides to go above what the pre-sentence report suggested, you probably got a shot at an appeal. Doesn't mean it's going to go through, but you got a shot. He went below what they recommended. He went below what the prosecution asked for. He wrote every single opinion on everything that he did ad nauseum. Huge reports. This guy was thorough as hell. He knew this was going to be something that they were going to try to appeal. Let me say this because people don't seem to get it. An appeal, especially a federal appeal, you're not appealing whether or not you did it. You're appealing whether or not there was anything procedurally that was done improperly. There's no chance he's going to find something on procedure that there is no shot of. When paroled, can you leave the country? No, not while on paper. The term on paper means you still are part of the Bureau of Prisons. For the federal system, he wouldn't be on parole. They did away with parole in the 80s for the federal system. He would be on probation. So after Diddy does his entire sentence, he has 5 years, which you could think about like parole. But the thing with parole is parole can shorten your sentence. We don't have that in the feds. You're going to do your number. But when you get out, you then have to figure out how to get through 5 years of going to a probation department constantly. You have to be on what's called a color system. You call a number every single day. Not everybody. If you're a white-collar criminal and your pre-sentence report says nothing about drugs or alcohol, then you may not have to deal with drugs or alcohol. Diddy's is all about drugs and alcohol, right? He was addicted to opiates. He was doing pink cocaine, that Tucci stuff. He had a guy that walked around with a fanny pack. I'm sorry, people don't like that word. What do they call them then? Fag bags. That's better. Oh, no, that's going to cost me. I'm kidding. Anyway, those little pouches that people wear, they filled with drugs. They walk around with this thing filled with drugs to take care of Sean's habit. He had a runner whose job was just to go pick up dope. Allegedly, the people at his management company, that would be Lou Taylor. Lou Taylor. Allegedly, she was sending bum bags. There you go. She was sending money out to people who were just getting drugs and doing all those things. That is an allegedly. Thank you. Bum bags. Spanx is back where? On Calhoun's Corner. Go over there and check him out. He's putting up daily content. I want to say it's about 8:15 Mountain Time, but don't quote me on that. So this is a guy that has a lot of drugs on his record. So he's going to have to call that number every single day. They're going to issue him a color when he gets out. They're going to say, your color's white. You're going to call in and they're going to say the colors for the day are green, blue, yellow, and white. Your color comes up. You got X amount of time to go and take a test. Hiding like there's no tomorrow. The question is, where's KK? That's Christina Karam. She's hiding and praying she doesn't get indicted. Thank you, Krista Melinda. You are a master. This is an opportunity for KK to run and hide. She's listed in a crap load of lawsuits, so we're going to be seeing her. And unfortunately for her, she's going to be tied to this man, whether she did anything wrong or not. See what I did there? Benefit of the doubt, Johnny Scoville. Whether she did anything wrong or not. Now, if I was a betting man, I would say that she did something wrong. And I am a betting man, or was at one time in my life. So I'm not saying like you're putting a bet on a roulette wheel. It's more like you're betting on black or red on a roulette wheel. I would say there's better than a 50% chance that it's like putting red and then covering both green spaces, Johnny Scoville. So a little better than 50-50 that she was as filthy as anybody in this. However, I think this was compartmentalized in a lot of ways. Why am I losing power here? Oh, I know why. Don't move. I know why. Sorry, people. But I got a new system here, and I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. Yeah, that'll do it. It helps if you turn that power strip on, Johnny Scoville. Sorry about that. I got a new power strip back there, and I hadn't had it turned on, which is not always a good idea. But it gives me a pretty good idea. 1 hour and 23 minutes, and you're going to start running out of power on this bad boy. At least, doing this. If you're just doing research, it takes a lot longer than that. I just subscribed to your son. I didn't know he had a channel. He does have a channel. Talks a lot about connection. Now, here's the thing. Wow, is that a drug bracelet and house arrest? Probably not. They don't do house arrest on probation. What he's going to have to do, though, is he absolutely is going to have to bring him 90 meetings in 90 days. They do this to almost everybody that gets out. That means he's going to have to go to NA or AA or a combination of them once a day for 3 months. He is not allowed. These are the terms of his release. Obviously, no guns, no drugs, no alcohol, right? That ought to be easy for him. Every time you see the guy, he had a bottle of something in his hand. No drugs, no alcohol, no guns. He's not allowed to contact any of the victims. Most of these are pretty standard for anybody on drugs. He has special conditions. One is that he cannot work where he manages anybody. He can't be a manager of a musician. He can't be a manager of a singer. He can't work basically for Bad Boy, because what he did at Bad Boy was manage people. He's never going to be allowed to do that again. He was an A&R man. Then our A&R man said, I don't hear a single. That would be artist and repertoire. Somebody that manages musicians. And thank you, Celtic Sharon. What a kind thing to say. Random testing, Lisa Murphy, but a ton of it. And the way it works, and somebody can tell Sean this if they want to reach out to him, because apparently 4 people that watch me have friends that are doing time with them. But the lighter the color, the more often you're going to get tested. I was a heroin addict. So when I got out, they were like, your color is white. My color came up so damn often. It was incredible. But I passed every single drug test. And when I got to about the 1 year mark, they said, we're going to switch you from your color to another one. And I said, what color am I switching to? He said, black. You do everything right, and they will fight to get you off of paper. I didn't even have to do my entire term on supervised release because I never failed a drug test, because I never missed any meeting, because I never did anything wrong the last time around. First time around, Johnny Scoville, I never passed a test, never went to a meeting. I wasn't very good the first couple of times. But this last one, I got very, very serious about trying to do what was right. And they kicked me off at the halfway mark. Almost had a heart attack. I really did. I couldn't believe it. What a kind thing to say, Leslie. She's going to join the channel. I appreciate that. And you know what? Am I an artist or a musician? I play the harmonica, play the blues harp. And believe it or not, true story, right, Johnny Scoville? I was voted best singer in my high school. And you know what else I was? They said, you know how they would do the prophecy? Like, you're going to be rich, you're going to be famous, you're going to be whatever. I was spotted on a deserted island outside America with Spiro Agnew. Swear to God. Like, how do you even come up with that in high school? But that was, I know. Boy, come up with that today. They'll cancel your happy butt. No, I do play the blues harp, but my brother's more of a musician than I am. When I went to college, I studied theater. Actually was in major motion picture, but you'll have to research that one your damn self to find me. But all right, people, that brings us to about the 1 hour and 26-minute mark. I won't keep you too much longer. So just to recap, Diddy ain't getting out. There is no chance his appeal goes through because everybody did something perfect. If you got a public defender, you got a damn good chance of saying, I had ineffective counsel. That is your get out of jail free card to an appeal, to at least them hearing what you have to say. It's kind of the last, the Hail Mary. Right? The Hail Mary pass is to say, hey, ineffective counsel, my lawyer sucked. You're not going to get away with that with his attorney. Lisa, my South American friend, good to see you. You're not going to get away with that with as great a legal representation as he had. That's off the table. So all you got left is, did the prosecution withhold any evidence from the defense? No chance. No chance in hell. Everything was done by the book. And Rune Subramanian, they found in his jail cell a notebook. It didn't say legal news on the top. Legal mail on the top of it. That's sacrosanct. If you have an envelope and it says legal mail on it, they can't read anything in it. He didn't do that. And he had a hit list. It was all of the people that he could either bribe or intimidate from the witness list. That is absolutely going to get you screwed. And the judge looked at it and went, I'm not comfortable with how the prosecution got this. I don't think that raid on the cell was random. I think you guys did this just to get this, and I'm not letting it in. This guy may have had it in for Diddy, but he did not break any rules. He may have not liked Sean Combs, but his rulings were down the middle. He called balls and strikes. There's no way they're going to get Rune Subramanian on any kind of an appeal. It's not going to happen. So all you've got left is this sentence is unjust, right? Not that he's not guilty. You can't argue that. He got too long. It doesn't, you're sentencing him as if this was a human trafficking, which he beat, and not just, and this again is a bullshit story that is supposed to get everyone in America going, yeah, that's not fair. Takes about 13 minutes of research to look at what kind of sentences they hand out on the Mann Act, black or white. It was a racist law when it came into existence. Make no mistake. This was a law that was written to get black folks. But that's not what it is anymore. Now it's a law to get people who engage in transportation of people across state lines for the purpose of having sex, whether those people be prostitutes, whether those people be children, right? This is how it goes down. This guy ain't got a shot of getting out. He's going to finish his sentence in there. And again, I'd be willing to bet this one, he's going to lose more good time. This is not a disciplined human being. When you get to prison, one of two things happens. You get disciplined or you get wasted. Now, he already got caught once with booze. He's going to get better at it. He's not a convict yet. He's an inmate. But the longer he's in there, the better he's going to get away with not screwing up. However, he will get lulled into a false sense of security. He'll start doing some dope, and they'll hit him with a random, and he's going to get popped. Our entire government is involved in child trafficking and are blackmailed. I agree with you 100%. If you haven't seen my Epstein stuff, check it out, please. You're right. Judge Rune Subramanian was the perfect choice for that case. Perfect. He didn't care about being famous. He didn't want to be in the limelight. He called balls and strikes. He was fair as hell. And now because of that, Diddy is screwed. That's what a judge is supposed to do. The prosecution puts on the best case. The defense puts on the best case. If they do, there isn't an appeal unless the sentence was unjust. But if the judge went below what probation recommended, he's got no, and the best part of that is he's costing him so much money to push through these stupid appeals. Oh no, hemorrhaging more money. That's it. Keep paying him. Christy Wolf, please have a good day at work. And he'll have a lot less money. He'll be bankrupt. If this fool doesn't, if you didn't see the show I did yesterday, please go and watch it. If Diddy does not declare bankruptcy, he will be, what's the proper word? I'm not trying to be offensive. Tits up, right? He is going to be absolutely got the X's on the eyes financially. Somebody left a comment after my thing yesterday that said, no matter how you shake it, the guy's still going to end up with millions when this is over. He spends between $10 and $30 million a month, right? You think you could give this guy $5 million and he could survive? I promise you that's not the case. Now, give him $5 million back in the day and he could have started a new company and done whatever. Who's going to want to work with this fool, right? He is predator number one in the eyes of humanity. For real. Nah, I mean, Epstein's dead, right? Diddy is the, but stay tuned because we're going to be talking about Will and Jada Smith. Allegedly, they may be just as nasty. And we're going to be doing a lot of talk about them. Sorry, but it's coming up, right? Also, there is an interesting trial that is coming up really quickly. One of the great mentors of P. Diddy, the L.A. Reid case is going to be coming up. That's going to be very interesting as well. L.A. Reid is, what's that? L.A. Reid. He's the cat that sent Usher to Diddy flavor camp.
Boy, bad flavor.
Are you Vance, Graham, Marco Rubio, and many others said bad things about him too, but he ignores it as long as they are kissing his ass now. For $1 billion, he would get a pardon. Well, that's not going to happen, my friend, because number one, he ain't got $1 billion. In fact, he's pretty short on cash. Number two, it would be political suicide for his entire party. Nobody likes to pardon people with really bad sex charges. Arabian Bard, good to see you. This guy's got really nasty accusations against him sexually. You got a better chance of seeing our Lord and Savior in a tie-dye shirt and a pair of Wayfarers than Donald Trump pardoning this dude. Not because Trump's a good dude, right? I'm not trying to argue any of that shit. I'm just saying that politically ain't no chance in hell. He's a pragmatist. I promise you he ain't going to be doing anything like that. Yes, get L.A. Reid too. He's a creep. Well, we're going to be covering L.A. Reid as that starts to come out because it's a pretty fascinating case, the L.A. Reid one. So we will be looking into that. All right, people, thank you for spending time with me. It literally warms my heart. I'm Tommy. Hopefully I'll see you guys tonight. I will be putting on a show between now and then. Put a little love in your heart. And you know what? Adopt a little critical thinking. I swear to God, it will make your life better. Put stuff to the smell test. It'll save you a whole lot of heartache. I'm Tommy. God bless, and we'll see you on the next one.